This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
Hey, welcome back. Jonathan Clark. We're in the studio with Kevin Griffin from Better Than Ezra, but he's got a new, actually, this is a debut solo album. We're holding it up right here. Took him enough time, but it's called Anywhere You Go. He's playing the Mercury Lounge in New York City tonight, Thursday, and tomorrow night, Friday night. All the tour dates, kevingriffinmusic.com. Let's get to the first time I heard of you and your band. I was on the station in Long Island, WLIR, WDRA.
The famous LIR.
I must have played Good like 1,000 times. And that's just me, one of the jocks. I mean, you got to talk about that time in your life.
It was an amazing time. You know, I wrote Good in 1990, but the summer of 1995, suddenly Better Than Ezra was signed, and Good just took off. It was #1 for 7 weeks and took us all around the world. And it's amazing that, you know, a song that really the lyrics were unfinished, the wah-ah, was supposed to be a lyric. I just never got around to doing it.
And everyone's copying you now.
And we started playing the song live, and people were like, "That's my favorite song, that Waha." And I was like, "Oh God, here." And I saw the future. I was like, "You're gonna 30 years from now, you're gonna be singing."
They said Waha is the song.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
So you're the chubby checker of.
I'm the chubby.
Rock.
I'll gladly be that guy. But
and
yes,
he's still doing it. So
I'm still doing it, and that song still crushes, you know. And so
still on the radio.
It's still on the radio, man.
And Better Than Ezra, still a working band.
Yeah.
You are quite the busy man, though. Along with all of what Better Than Ezra entails on a daily basis, you're a really successful songwriter, and I didn't know this about you. Written songs, having hits with artists like Howie Day, Train, James Blunt, Bare Naked Ladies, Christina Perri, among many others. Did you also work with Taylor Swift?
Yeah, well, she covered a couple of my songs, and then she recorded one called Breathless. Yeah, so, and I've gotten to know her, but we've never actually been in the same room and worked on a song. I would like that.
Yeah.
But just to have her cover one of your songs, you know, and I was wondering, I was like, why is Our Last Night and Breathless, the two songs that Taylor does, why are those like so many streams? And then somebody said Taylor Swift's covering them live.
All right, can you buy me a car now?
I know, right? Well, here's in full disclosure, she recorded Breathless for the Hope for Haiti telethon in 2011. Yeah. And when she asked for permission, I was like, sure, of course.
Yeah.
And then in my mind, honestly, I was like, cha-ching.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, it's all going to the charity. And I felt just guilty for even thinking that.
Right.
For that one moment. Then I was like, what was I thinking? But yes.
As we revert back to the Buddha. Namaste.
Yeah, the namaste.
But you know what? That makes me think of Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You.
Oh, yeah.
Which was then covered by Whitney Houston. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy when stuff like that happens. Like, even if like you have a song on somebody like that, their album, and it was never a single, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because
they're huge artists, and then you get their fans, and it's always a good thing. So yeah, so writing for other people, keeps my songwriting fresh, and especially when I'm working with younger artists because they have different influences than I do, and so I pick up some of their lyrics or some of their chord changes that are different than maybe I grew up doing.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the Struts.
The Struts.
Yeah.
One of my favorite. I'm working with them, and I just booked some dates in November out in LA.
Okay.
Those guys. What's cool about the Struts is they are an old school rock and roll band in that they live together. They roll in at 9 a.m. for a songwriting session in LA. They're already dressed like they're going out to Studio 54. It's
dressed
like
for the camera.
snakeskin boots and leather pants. I'm like, you guys rock. So it's refreshing to see that rock and roll or just bands are alive and well.
Yeah, those guys have been in here a couple times. Love those guys so
Luke
much.
And
fun.
Adam.
Oh my God, yeah. Do you have now tell me about this. This is really cool. You have an annual festival called the Pilgrimage Festival.
We just had it.
Yeah, you just had it like in September. Now, when does Bonnaroo happen?
Bonnaroo happens in June, the first weekend in June. It's usually like June 8th, 9th, and 10th.
But this happens in September, and this has really blown up.
It's blown up for us. We just had our 5th one.
And what town in Tennessee is this?
It's in Franklin, Tennessee,
okay.
15 miles south of downtown Nashville. And this year we had the Foo Fighters, the Killers, Keith Urban, Leon Bridges, Nathaniel Rateliff, Head in the Heart, Better Than Ezra, Lauren Daigle. I mean, year 3 we had Eddie Vedder, Justin Timberlake, Ryan Adams, Jason Isbell. We've had Hall & Oates, Beck. And it's just taken off. And what we wanted, I mean, Bonnaroo is awesome, but it's a big 3-day 4-day actually camping festival.
Right,
You know,
correct.
you go. It's a
Yeah.
rite of passage for kids, but there's a movement or a lane for festivals for people who might have kids who might have camped out at those big festivals like Lala and ACL.
Yeah.
But now you got kids. You like a little nicer experience. You don't want 100,000 people. Maybe you want 25,000 people on a
Right.
big, beautiful farm, and that's what pilgrimage is.
So what inspired you to do that? I mean, this was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
You know what? Eating too much on Thanksgiving Day inspired me for real. So it was this the day after Thanksgiving, 2013. It was a Friday, and I'd been overserved. And I was trying to run off some tryptophan.
Yeah.
And I went the opposite way that I normally do. I went
running.
north.
You're
I was
jogging.
running.
Yeah.
And my buddy was like, "Don't say jogging. No one says jogging anymore, Kevin." So running.
Running.
I was
Okay,
running.
yeah.
And I found myself out at this farm, this 250-acre former Tennessee walking horse farm that's on the National Historic Register with rolling hills and natural amphitheaters. And I was like, wait a second. I'm 18 miles from downtown Nashville, mile and a half from this big interstate in Franklin, Tennessee, this really cool town. And I'm going to do this festival kind of built on the DNA of New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival.
Oh, okay.
Which
yeah.
it just celebrates the best of the Gulf Coast, the food, the artisans, the merchants, and all the music. That's what pilgrimage is for Middle Tennessee.
So that's a lot of work, though.
It's a great team I have, though. I'm just saying, you know,
I was going to say, you got to put a good team
dude,
together.
you know, just like anything, an idea is only an idea until it's put into action.
Right.
And so I'm just a small part of a much bigger machine.
Yeah,
I had the
yeah.
idea, then I handed it to some friends, and we took off from there.
Now, do you have a soccer club as well? What is this Nashville Soccer Club?
Oh wow, man! I like it. You've done your due diligence. You know, we did a partnership with them for this year's pilgrimage, and they're I guess they're a farm league right now, but next year they're going to be a pro soccer club. Going against all the major teams like in New York and stuff, and they invited me out to go be with all the crazy fans at the end of the stadium, and I went out there and just fell in love with it. So I'm tight with those guys, and they have a new stadium that's going to be finished in 2021. And
okay.
so, you know, Nashville's just exploding. You know, they're talking about bringing the what's the baseball team in the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah.
They're discussing that.
Oh, okay.
Because you know times aren't so good in Baltimore, but you know I'm sure some Baltimore fans are saying what?
Yeah, they do have a beautiful stadium.
The Camden Yards is the best.
I mean, it's beautiful.
I played Y2K New Year's Eve 2000. I played in Camden Yards.
Wow.
Yeah, and when everybody thought it was going to be the end of days.
Right, yeah. That didn't work out.
It didn't work out.
But you are from Louisiana. You
am.
went to college there, too. Almost became a lawyer?
Yeah, you know, it was going to be, that was the fallback. That was the safety net. At least, you know, when you're young, you think, I need a safety net. Then you
Parents
realize.
were like, yeah, you better.
You realize as you get older, there is no safety net, you know.
Anything can happen.
You know, anything can happen, whatever you do. But I was like, well, if music doesn't work out, I'll be an entertainment lawyer, or I worked in a talent agency at CAA in LA back in the day when Mike Ovitz was there.
Oh my God!
So
Did you meet him?
Oh yeah. I did runs for him. You know?
Wow.
It was like a really bad fraternity as far as the hazing that went on. Like
Well,
if you didn't get the cereal boxes in order of the different stature of the boxes for their big conference meeting, you were pretty you were in trouble.
Well, a lot of people got their start in the mailroom. David Geffen, you know, people like that.
Yeah.
Well, so did that come in handy while you were negotiating your first record deal?
A little bit. What it came in handy for was realizing it drove home to me that I don't want to be an agent. I want to have an agent.
Yeah.
You know, and being on that side of the business side, which I respect, you know, it just really kind of illustrated for me, like, man, what are you doing? You're a musician. You're an artist. You need to pursue this. So I let the law school tests and everything lapse, and I just dove into Better Than Ezra, and they got it. It happened, and it's just been this career that keeps evolving and brings me to be able to, you know, 30 years later, talking to people like you and having a solo album come out, you know, finally, which is just really cool, and it's a
tell me
blessing.
about New Orleans, because you were there in 2005 for Katrina, right?
I was there.
I mean, did you get it wiped out completely? Like,
we were really lucky. I was actually in New York on the Saturday that the governor declared the mandatory evacuation. We were doing Better Than Ezra was doing the CBS morning show.
Oh wow!
And we had all the wives had flown in, and it was going to be just a big fun kind of weekend getaway. And then we were like, we got to go home. Now, the 5 out of the past 6 years prior to Katrina, there had been called a mandatory evacuation, but no hurricane ever hit. So a lot of people were like, oh, it's going to be another one that doesn't hit us. But for some reason, we went back. We couldn't go back to our home because they were already making everyone leave the city. They called it the contraflow, when all lanes going in and out of a city all go out.
One direction.
So it's bizarre to see all the cars going, down the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so we came back 6 weeks later. Our neighborhood was in the old part of town that was the high ground, so we didn't flood. But the city was just a wreck, and in 2005, left there and moved to L.A.
And then came back to Nashville.
To Nashville. Been there for 9 years.
So I guess you've been pretty busy because this is the first. It's hard to believe that this is your debut solo album.
Well, Jonathan, the world had waited long enough.
Yes, you've been kind of busy though. If you think about
you know what,
it. I mean,
it's writing with other artists and producing them, doing Better Than Ezra records. I did a project with Fitz and the Tantrums and some other artists. It was a big Christmas super group we did on Sony a couple years ago. So this was just kind of the right moment when a group of songs that I knew weren't Better Than Ezra songs, and I knew I didn't want to give away to any other bands.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a solo record. But saying it and doing it are two different things, and so it took me a little bit. So here it is, tomorrow.
But you went back and sort of revisited some of your favorite artists.
I did.
Right? When you were kind of conceiving of this idea.
What's really cool with this record, and it's rare that you get to do it when you're a musician, is just like make a record for something that just turns you on musically. Like, I'm not going to think about getting this on the right format, that I'm normally on. I'm going to do something that just really excites me and harkens back to the music that inspired me, and that is still being made. So I really listen to like Neil Young, Harvest.
Well, I definitely hear that, especially on track one.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a line. Is it words?
Yeah.
Words.
Are we still here?
Are we? And I'm totally immersing
and the guitar
myself.
sound.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I mean, anybody who loves Neil Young and Crazy Horse is going to hear that song and go, "Oh, I know exactly where your head's at."
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be that way. That the title really is like anywhere you go. It's like sitting in front of your album collection and pulling things out that you love, and that sound is timeless, and there's bands like Head and the Heart and Dawes who are making that kind of music, and it still resonates with people. And the great thing about those records is the new ones now are the Neil Young or Blood on the Tracks Dylan. You put them on and they still sound relevant. They don't sound dated, and that's the kind of record I wanted to make that just was timeless. And minimal production I'm used to doing 150 tracks on pop songs, and this was the opposite mindset.
And there is a track on this called Hacienda that we're going to play here in a moment. But tell us about this song. There's an interesting story behind this track.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was down in Tulum, and Tulum is, in the Yucatan Peninsula. It's about an hour and a half drive from Cancun. And it was in this bizarre little kind of a boutique hotel called Nest. And there's just a lot of there's a lot of people, maybe it's like Alaska, where people who are wanting to disappear. And I was just looking around. I was like, this is like, it's cast of characters, whether it was the maitre d' or the guy who'd lived there for 6 months who walked around with a parrot on his shoulder. And like usually they're trying to get you to take a picture and get $5. But no, this guy, this was his friend.
He was just rolling.
And it was just all different types of people. And I was like, this feels like I'm living the lyrics to a Joe Walsh song. And then I started thinking about Joe Walsh, and I had my headphones on, and I was listening to Life's Been Good and all those great songs. And I was like, then I started going to old Eagles and those narratives, those old stories, whether it's Hotel California, or name any song. And so I started writing these lyrics down while I was by the pool and by the ocean. And I grabbed this old mariachi guitar that the concierge had and wrote this song that night. And so it's really just like a deep dive into Tulum and crazy characters and Joe Walsh. Mix them all together and put them in a Vitamix.
Kevin Griffin is with us, a new solo album, Anywhere You Go. He's playing tonight and tomorrow night, Thursday and Friday, here in New York City at the Mercury Lounge. He's on tour. All the tour dates, kevingriffinmusic.com. I just want to go back and revisit the 90s era. There was so much, it seemed like, it was then called modern rock.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, bands like yours and others, it was like sort of like a new sort of, explosion of new music. During that time and, when good was like just completely blowing up, was there a time where you were like, I can't believe that we're playing here, or that I met that person, or I jammed with that band? Is there something that comes to mind immediately from that era?
All the time. I mean, I would have and I was old enough. It wasn't like we were 17. I was 27 when Ezra, took off, and I think it was we had just been in England playing shows, and we did Letterman. And then we flew from England. We did the Letterman show on a Thursday night, and then the next day we were playing RFK Stadium at HF Festival. Remember that big thing?
Oh, yeah.
And we played with Red Hot Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam, and Sting was on the bill. And then that night we all went out with Sting, and Sting was just super tall, kind of holding court. And it was a pretty famously Sting likes to portray himself as a landed gentry, and he's a brilliant guy, right?
Yeah.
You know, he owns a villa in Tuscany,
right.
But he also likes to go to seedy little dives. And we were famously, when he would take meetings at A&M Records with Al Cafaro and those guys back in the day, he wouldn't have them at Henson Studios, the old Charlie Chaplin Studios on La Brea in LA. He would have them at Crazy Girls Strip Club across the street.
Oh, right. I
so
know
they
that
had,
place.
So they had, yeah, you do know.
Yeah.
So we may have been in a place like that. And
not confirm or deny.
And at some point, I look over and there's people dancing around Sting, and Sting goes, "Welcome to the party, Kevin."
And it's still with you today. That's amazing.
It's still with me. Yeah. So that was a moment, and I'm like, I'm hanging out at this seedy dive. It may be a gentleman's club with Sting. Life is okay.
Yeah,
man.
Kevin Griffin, the debut solo album, Anywhere You Go, and all the tour dates, kevingriffinmusic.com. If you're in New York City, go see him tonight, Thursday and Friday at the Mercury Lounge. Kevin, thank you so much.
Brother, thank you so much, Jonathan.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.